So good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are in the world, because we are here and on Zoom for Therapists in Conversation with Trudi Spiers, who is a Master Reiki practitioner and so much more. Morning, Trudi. How you doing?
Good morning, Leslie. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm getting there this morning, having some gremlins, as we discussed earlier on, but you know, gremlins are fun. They make you wake up in the morning. Sometimes too much. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about you and what you do, because, you know, thank you so much for all your contributions in Therapists in Conversation videos and discussion panel. It's been a lot of fun, really. And I am starting to talk too much. So we're going to talk more about you. How did you get started in this?
When I was in my 30s, I had a knee injury, and I was working for a charity at the time, and they had a physio there, unbeknown to me, who was also trained in Reiki. And I'd never heard of Reiki. And she said, just hop on my couch and we'll do some Reiki. So I was like, yep, fine, whatever. Quite happy to try anything. And I could feel every single part of my knee moving inside, outside. And yeah, I was completely blown away by it. So I asked her for more information. Skipping 10 years forward, I then decided it was for me to train. It hadn't been appropriate or the right time beforehand. So I took my journey and started training. And 4.5 years on, here I am.
It's one of those things, isn't it? When we find the thing, it's not always immediately that we take action on it. No. And I was talking with Sue the other day there about that, and with some of the other guys, that basically the universe almost gives you a little tease. It's like a burlesque. It's like, this is what you could have, but not yet. Because you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wonderful thing about it, is because I don't like to call it the unconscious mind, because it's anything but unconscious. And it's definitely not sub. It's not sub anything, because it's everywhere. And it's where we get all of the powers and the healing modalities from, really, I believe. I'm very Jungian in that department. I really do the collective consciousness situation. But isn't it funny how once that little stone's been unturned and it's seen, of course you cannot unsee it. So it's funny, isn't it, how it starts to pick up momentum in your life. What were the triggers for you?
I think I always knew I wanted to train in Reiki. I just wasn't sure when or who with. Then we decided to move counties. So once we'd made that decision and we knew which county we're moving to, everything fell into place. And I knew it was then that I needed to start the journey and put it out to find a teacher. And ironically, it was somebody who I'd known for 20 plus years. And I didn't even know she taught it at the time.
Sometimes it's the best kept secret in the world.
Exactly. So I did my Reiki 1 with her before we moved. I know I went back and did my Reiki 2 with her probably a year afterwards. And then I went and did my Reiki Master teacher training locally, because she wasn't available at the time. But we still work really closely together and bounce off each other for different feedback and ideas.
Now, before this micro-terrorist decided to have a vice-like grip on the planet, you actually were running retreats as well as doing healing modalities, etc. So how are you dealing with clients coming in and going out? And do you see a time when you'll be able to actually open up your retreat business again?
Well, this last weekend on Sunday, I did actually do 2 healing tent experiences just for 2 people. So I've reduced my numbers right down. So I'm doing for 2 people that are in the same bubble, and just me, which I can do at social distance and with masks on. And so I said we were outside. It was really nice, and it was lovely to do something that felt normal after so long of not normal. So we did the outside. So I did 2 hours of healing, and then we finished it off with an afternoon cream tea for them to enjoy.
Oh, I see, an afternoon cream tea. That's terribly civilised, darling.
It was very British.
I love that idea. Yeah, you've spent a lot of energy. Go and boost some up. I must admit, though, in shamanism, we tend to use chili chocolate.
Ah, lovely.
And if the chili's not available, we'll just have the chocolate.
Sounds fair enough to me.
Which I'm not really supposed to have. But at the same time, you know,
Everything in moderation.
It's ceremony. It's part of the ceremony. You got
exactly.
You know, can't not do it. That's my excuse anyway, and I'm sticking to it. So, if someone was to come to you, what would make them come to you? What is it that, can you give me like a case study without mentioning any names, a generalization of something?
People are obviously attracted to everybody for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. If a client comes to me, it could be that they just want to feel more balanced and secure. It could be that they feel unbalanced and they don't quite know how to put it right, but they've heard or read something on my website or page that has made them realise that, you know, chakra balancing or Reiki could help realign and balance their body. So they'll come for me for that. I've got clients with fibro and ME, general aches and pains, people that work in quite big energetic fields and they just want to have that time for them just to rebalance their body and to get rid of all negativity that they may have picked up throughout the week.
It's really important for therapists and healers to actually understand that. Absolutely. I know that you do, but I also see a lot of people with burnout and very, very harsh emotional situations going on. It's because all the energy that they've been doling out for other people. But actually, sometimes what's coming from the clients, because they're too tired to keep their protection up, what's coming from the clients is actually clinging on to them. Yeah. And, you know, it's something that we have to remind ourselves to be in balance and to look after number one too. Yeah. I love the airplane analogy of, you know, when those air things come down, those masks come down, you put it on yourself first, because if you're knocked out, you can't do anything for anybody else.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that particularly, we talked at one point about supervision. And it's a form of supervision in a way, because it's getting yourself checked out. It's making sure that you're totally 100% on your game when people come in to see you. And I think that that's important that everybody does that. We have a way of transferring energy and allowing that. But the other question I was going to ask you is, well, it's more an observation. People don't really understand how you can heal someone when you're not physically in the room or when you're not actually touching them. A lot of the times with Reiki, that's one of the excuse my saying, woo-woo things that people think, you know, that's a bit, ooh. So can we go into that a little bit more? Because I do Reiki myself, so I understand it. And it's still, when I first started, I was a vet nurse and I was very cynical, very, very logical, very audio digital. This is this, that is that, this is a medical condition. Although I did have the other side of me, which was sitting in the corner going, excuse me, you do realize that a lot of the time you're using your intuition? You do realize, and I'm like, no, go away. But eventually the dam burst. But it's one of those things when you're talking to someone who normally would be in a situation where they've been taught not to believe it, don't trust it, and think it's a bit woo-woo. What do you, but still they come.
Yep.
It's interesting. Still they come.
Yep.
And I think that that's sometimes a last resort situation. Oh, I'll try anything to get rid of this.
I think sometimes people are more curious, so they want to know and they want to experience it themselves. They've heard a lot about it. They don't necessarily believe in it, but they think, do you know what, there must be something in it because people keep talking about it or it keeps popping up, you know, how things do. So yeah, I've had quite a few cynics come through my door. Some of them have been completely blown away by it. Some of them are determined not to feel anything and haven't done. It's interesting, and I think some of them sometimes come for the first session, quite like it, but they're not sure about it, and then when they come back another time for whatever reason, they're like, oh my god, I can completely feel it now, because something's changed in their mind shift in their body, and they're more open or susceptible to actually accepting the feeling of what their body is telling them. So I do find that really interesting. And I think obviously during lockdown I was sending a lot of remote healing and distant healing to the situation in general, with other Reiki masters, and also I was doing it on my own to people that had said, you know, they really feel they need something, because I think with lockdown obviously there was a huge amount of different types of pressure that people weren't used to, and they couldn't do what they'd normally do, so they were turning to anything that may or may not help them to try and experience these things. And also some people had more time, so again they wanted to try things they haven't had time for. So yes, you can send distant healing to anybody, whether they're in the room with you or whether they're in a different country. And
Yeah,
mind-blowing.
it is. One of my convincers is with animal Reiki. I had a friend whose cat had been knocked down, and she was in a lot of pain, and she asked me to do this. So I said to her, I'm going to have to check in with the cat first. Have to have permission.
Yeah.
But fortunately, you know, I went, and at that time I was able to go and actually meet the cat in person and have a chat. And this is actually how my Reiki journey took shape to a certain extent, was through my work as a vet nurse. And I got caught by one of the vets one day doing it. And she, what are you doing? And I said, just having a chat here. No, Leslie, what are you doing? Well, I'm giving the cat some Reiki. We're having a chat about what's going on and how it's going to progress. And she said, okay. And I thought, why? Okay. What's going on? She said, I suddenly realised that when you're on, the animals that I think are going to have more pain or die don't, as often as they might.
Yeah.
I said, okay. She said, and so now, when you're on, I'm going to give you a list.
Love it.
So I ended up making a lot of work for myself, but it was good practice. And you know, of course, there were some animals who were going to die, because that's the natural way. And particularly with cats actually switch themselves off. You know, but I think that's the other thing, is that people too can switch themselves off to the healing because of a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's very hard to get right. But obviously, when you have someone a mother or a sister or a well-meaning friend comes to you, oh, I need you to do something. Well, we can send it to a general situation, but we can't actually send it straight to that person without their permission. So they can't do it as a birthday surprise kind of thing.
No, it doesn't work, so
What kind of interesting requests have you had? Have you had any that stick out in your mind?
I did have one in lockdown actually, for a lady who I did know her, and it was a friend of hers that asked me to send some healing to her on her behalf. And I said, I can add her to my list, but technically without her consent I can't, send it. And she said, oh no, she's consented, she just doesn't want to be seen on the list, because it was a situation that she wasn't, wanting out openly, if that makes sense. And I respected that and thought, that's fair enough. But yeah, I've done Reiki on some animals, chickens and sheep and various animals. And I think all the people have always been really surprised. They think you're mad. They think, why the hell would you do that? It's a chicken, for God's sake, just, and I'm like, no, every animal has a right to live, and every animal has, a right to be pain-free. And yeah, we did the chicken, and I just picked it up and had it on my lap for a little while, and it seemed a lot better afterwards, and it's still with us now, which is great. So talking a couple of years ago now.
Well, I'm sure she's quite happy about it.
Yeah, she seems to be. She's still clucking around. So yeah, I do find it an honour to be asked to do animals, because I think it's nice to be able to give them the energy that they require, and for the owners obviously to see the benefit of it as well. And I've got one or two people that spring to mind that I've treated their animals but not them. So
Yeah, it's funny how it works. But this is something that happens a lot with animals and owners, or animal companions, because I don't think you ever really own an animal.
Yeah.
It kind of owns you.
Yeah, very much so.
Because it changes your life and gives you a timetable that you have to live by. But what people will actually gift to that animal that they wouldn't gift to themselves.
Yeah.
Particularly things like healing, Reiki, any of the healing modalities that we use in animals, which are plentiful, really, without actually interfering with the natural way of things. But it's funny, isn't it, how people think it's the person doing the Reiki who has the power, but it's actually a conduit situation, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people assume it's us that does it, and it's not. It's obviously what's going on around us, and the energy that we just the channel. We're just the body for it to go through to the right person. I had a lady the other day that was new, and she didn't know anything about it. Didn't want any questions. I asked her if she had any expectations, any questions. No, she just wanted to try it. Took a while for it to, how you can feel it's working straight away, or sometimes you feel it's a little bit resistant. So it took a while, but once we got there, she was blown away. But by the time I got to her feet, she was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, it's just different for everybody. And you never know. Somebody can have Reiki every single day or every single week, and it'll still be a different feeling, a different situation, because you've got different energies going on in your body and around you. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if you've got someone whose mind is elsewhere, a lot of the time it will take them a bit to understand, to relax. And sometimes that's where we have to go, because someone can come with something, but that's not necessarily where the Reiki goes.
Nope. And sometimes people will go, well, why is my left leg hurting? Or why are you saying there's a problem on my left leg when it's my right leg that's hurting? Say, because you're overcompensating. So where the pressure is on your bad leg, you're overcompensating on your good leg. And they go, oh. But they don't think about that at the time, because they just assume it will be the bad area that will be the one that gets healed.
Yeah, it's the symptom is not the fact.
No.
But it's one of those, that word you used earlier on, expectation, that's the big bad for me. That's one of those, when you have to deal with people's expectations, because they don't always tell you what they are.
No, I always ask, it's one of the first questions I ask, have you got any expectations?
Yeah, but sometimes they don't even realise consciously that they have an expectation. Sometimes they don't realise they have it.
Yeah.
And they're just sort of, well, nothing happened. I didn't feel tingling. My friend felt tingling. I didn't feel heat. My friend felt heat. But it's not working for me. It's not going right. That is just something that they take on board without actually, they internalize it, but they don't verbalize it.
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, I've got, as I say, I have had some people come with massive expectations, and I've had other people come and going, I don't know anything, and is there anything I need to know? If not, let's just crack on. Because the less knowledge they have, I think the more open they sometimes feel.
Yeah, I think it's easier to deal with someone who is curious and I have no idea what to expect here, so I'm just going to let you do what you do and see what happens. Yeah. That's a magical moment, really.
Yeah, it is. It's a very big honor to feel that somebody trusts you enough to be able to do something that they've never tried before and still feel safe having it done.
Reiki is universal healing.
Yeah.
And it is actually universal healing, because this is where we get into trouble with the word healing, because people automatically put cure in the same box, and they're so apart. It's unbelievable, because healing is a process, and cure is a stamp on the end of the process, if it happens at all. This is where it's interesting that Reiki particularly can be used in hospice situations, and in a lot of other situations where people would think, what's the point in that if it doesn't cure it, it's that. But actually, it's not about the curing, exactly. It's about the journey with the dis-ease.
I think it's an honour to help anybody at end of life in particular, to help them feel the safe transition and feel, that they're in good hands and safe hands. And if you can help them transition from one to the other, then why would you not do that for them?
I think it's almost as well that you're giving them a modicum of control over the situation. Understanding that they are energy, understanding that energy is something that always exists, is always there, and actually allowing people to be pain-free to a greater extent or a lesser extent, no matter how far on the scale it goes. A little bit of relaxation and healing with Reiki particularly is good. And it also has this knock-on effect, doesn't it, of healing the families as well. Because just by seeing the change in energy in their loved one.
I mean, I think you can Reiki the room. You can obviously Reiki the room that they're in. You can Reiki the situation, and you can Reiki the family members that are open to it and have it given you permission. And likewise, obviously, the patient. And it makes a massive difference. Yeah. And it's a real honour, I think, to do that. I mean, I did it for my mum, and I Reiki'd the room the whole day during her last day, which I don't know how, but I knew it was her last day. And I Reiki'd the room, I Reiki'd the situation, I spoke to her through my mind. And when the time came, it was very peaceful and as nice as it can be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Definitely, I've had a similar experience.
Yeah.
So, going right on the other end of the scale, what about pregnancy and birth?
I haven't done so much on pregnancy. I've done a couple of ladies that have been pregnant, and they loved the experience, and they said their babies loved the experience, which was nice. They were both in their third trimester, and they could feel the babies moving and almost talking. I could pick up on the different vibrations of obviously the mum and the child, and picked up on various other things as well, which I discussed with the parent afterwards, if they were open to it, obviously. Always check first if they're open to knowing more.
Number one rule, check first.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the one lady I did, I'm sure she won't mind me saying that I knew instinctively that she had a baby girl. And obviously I was talking to her and I said, oh, do you know what the baby is? And she said, yes. And I said, would you mind if I said what I think it is before you tell me? And she said, yes, that's fine. And I did. And yeah, it was absolutely spot on. But it was like the baby was communicating to me and talking and just telling me stuff.
Now, you see, that's another one of those woo-woo moments, isn't it? For a lot of people. However, when you think about, particularly in the 80s in America, there was a thing about talking to your baby in the womb, feeding it music, Mozart particularly, to inspire the brain, because there's an idea that Mozart particularly causes the neuroplasticity in the brain to make better connections. I would suspect that Bach is in there as well, because if you want a mathematician, all of his stuff is very mathematical. Yep. So it's the energy and the vibration of the different things that are going through that placenta. Everything that goes into the mother goes into the baby. And that includes energy and emotion. So actually going and giving yourself the gift of a Reiki session when you're pregnant is a good idea, because it's a very emotive time, particularly for the first timers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, I wouldn't know. I'm only saying that because I've heard and I've seen. I've heard some stories, I can tell you. So this is why I never did it myself. I was totally shocked one day when I was about 12, I think, and Auntie decided to go through all 7 births with me in great graphic detail. I don't think I've ever been to the toilet so many times in an hour in my life.
Bless you.
But it's one of those things, isn't it? It's these are the things that people don't understand they're making marks with, and we carry those marks. And it's only when we come to someone and we get the Reiki, we don't even have to tell them. The Reiki will go where it needs to go, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you're getting kind of an MOT to a certain extent.
Yeah.
All points are being checked. Now, just briefly, the chakras. Explain chakras for people who don't understand what chakras are.
Well, we have 7 main chakras in our body, starting with the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine, which is the colour red. So they all have a colour associated to them. You've got essential oils associated, you've got crystals associated. But the main thing is, if you focus on the 7 main chakras, starting from the root, which is the base of your spine, getting up to the crown of your body, if one of those or all of those are out of balance, you can feel really unstable. You can feel like you can't make decisions. You might feel jealousy, insecurity, all the negative feelings that you could feel could be as simple as one of your chakras may be out of balance, or 2 or 3. Throat problems could mean you've got communication issues and you don't quite know how to deal with the situation, and it's frustrating you, and you want to speak out about it but you can't, so you're suppressing it, and then it's obviously manifesting into other issues. So throat chakra is quite a big common one to be blocked or have issues, and that's got the colour blue associated to it as well. So they're important to all of us.
Yeah. So how do we get in touch with you, Trudi?
Sorry?
How do we get in touch with you?
With me, you can visit my website, which is the 5elementsretreats.co.uk. And I'm also on Facebook under the same name as well, and obviously Trudi Spiers on LinkedIn, should you wish to go down that road.
And also you can be seen monthly on Therapists in Conversation. I
can, yes, which I very much enjoy.
Good, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you for
allowing me
having
to talk as well. And because I burble a lot, as you know, I'm a blether.
Nothing wrong with talking.
This is true. There's nothing wrong with that throat chakra, I can tell you. So, just to wind up, Reiki, balance, definitely. Healing imbalance in life, in all the stages of life, and looking at those little chakra wheels to make sure they're spinning in the right direction and they've got no gunk.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to be doing. So anybody who has anything that they feel or think that they might have that's not quite where it should be, or are just curious and would like to know more and experience a Reiki session, I would get in touch with Trudi, because it can be done over Zoom.
Yep.
It can be done not over Zoom. So wherever you are, now you know Trudi, give her a call.
Thanks,
Thanks, Trudi.